that you get the orientation right. If you put it this way, that would be backwards. It would work, but then it wouldn't line up with your holes if you bought a pre-drilled enclosure. And left would be louder, down would be quieter. When you look at a potentiometer, if you're looking at it from the back side, this is considered 1, 2, 3. Shout out to John Cusack for providing fantastic components from Stompbach Parts at great prices. Highly recommend buying from his shop if you can find the parts you need there. And then also if you look at the silkscreen, you can see these lines that are coming up there. Those also correspond with the body here. So we do that. There's two ways to approach this. One is you can mount this on the inside of the enclosure, put your screws on it, and then drag your board into it until it sits where you want it. That's how I do if there's a lot of components and it's a complex tight build. For this particular one, I'm just going to pin that back down. I'm just going to do it like this, to where the pins just barely press through. I know because I built one before that if you press the pins all the way through, which is how I do on a lot of things, because the foot switch is board mounted, it'll sit in the box kind of wonky. I'm just going 1. Oop, that's too round. There we go. 2, 3. Okay. So all that's good. We could actually test the fit. And look, it fits pretty good. Nice. Let's go ahead and install this bezel while we're at it. That's this guy here. Goes in there with the nut on the back. There's locking, these little like locking rings, like a split ring that they come with. I've always found that they get in the way and don't really add any benefit. So I just get this as tight as I can by hand. And if it's got a little wiggle, I just use a set of needle nose because I can't get my big tool in there, and put it on there. And then it's tight. So we're good there. Closure to the side for the moment. We're going to do these two guys next. Let's snip some wires. So we don't need long wires as I demonstrated here. We just have to go from here to here. So like 1 inch to 1.5 is enough. Feel free to cut, go longer, whatever you're comfortable with. You can trim it down later if you feel like it, or you can just leave it a little bit longer. The shorter the better, though, because less wire means less signal path to travel through. So I'm snipping these at, I don't know, all about the same length. If you want to be really careful, you could measure them out or cut one that fits and then measure the rest to them. But I don't find that that's terribly necessary. I've actually started buying pre-snipped and stripped wire from, again, Stompbox Parts, because this is the part that I feel is the most tedious of the build. Make sure we get at least, a decent bit of wire popping out of the insulation there. By the way, all the parts that I buy for my personal builds and my business builds and for my kits, I shop at a couple different places. I shop at Mouser because I buy in bulk, and you can find, for the basic resistors, capacitors, and stuff, I find you can get the best quality products at high volumes and at good prices. you can get better stuff than you might find elsewhere, and it's easy once you learn the system. It's very complex to find stuff because there's like 65,000 different capacitors. But once you figure out the system, it's easy to keep track of it and whatnot. For hardware, I mainly buy like these Lumbergs here. I mainly buy those from lovemyswitches.com. Lawrence and his team, you know, those are great people. I've been shopping there for years, and they provide really good prices on enclosures, hardware, that sort of stuff. They've started to carry some components, but really they're hardware based. And then Stompbox Parts is one of my new favorite places because they have things that builders use, like ribbon cables, pre-cut these. Everything you buy from them is going to be really excellent price, but you usually have to buy a volume. You have to buy 5 of a piece or 10 of a piece, but really great. For the weird stuff, I shop at Small Bear Electronics because they have like vintage, no longer made parts and strange things like built-in bricks, which are used for reverb units, things like that. So Small Bear, they've been around for years. I love them. And, you know, a lot of people shop at Tata. Tata is an overseas place that has a lot of great components for getting started. I mean, even for continuing. Some of their products are the lowest prices around. I don't shop there that often because I tend to know exactly when I want to buy, and I get it from Mouser. But you know, a lot of people shop at Tata, so as long as you're getting good components in a timely fashion, that's a great place to go. Okay, so now we got our 6 wires. I'm going to go ahead and attach these to the board first. Debating how I want to do this. I don't like, usually if I have a choice, I don't like the solder parts to be visible. We don't have a choice here. So, I mean, you could go either way. You could go up through here on this side, or you could go down this side. I'm going to go down this side. And I'm not going to use the enclosure for this. Again, you've got positive. I'm using red, and those would be the square pads. And the grounds are all round pads, so I use black wire for those. So I just kind of get one in there, hold it in place with one hand, hold my solder. This is probably not the professional way to do it, but this is how I do it. Okay, and now I do a black one right next to it. Sorry, trying to keep everything kind of in camera frame as I do this. Good, make sure to not touch, don't build any solder bridges. I got a little bit of dirty flux on there. I'll just scrape that off. Okay, there's 2, and they're all the way through, and they're in good shape. They're not damaged, and the solder goes all the way through. Okay, now on to the next set of wires. Same deal. Make sure you get the red wire in the square pad for the positive. And then black wire for the ground. One more time. Hey, isn't that the LED I was looking for earlier? Okay, we just double check those. they're good, and the leads are pretty short, so we really don't need to snip a lot of them. We'll snip this one. It's a little long. And then I'm looking here, and I noticed that the solder didn't really go through all the way. Okay, I don't know if you can see, but there's 3 pads, and you can see solder all the way through. I'm talking about the potentiometer there, and it didn't go all the way through there. When we look back here, it's just a big bulb, so we're going to heat that up one more time. You always want to be double checking your work. Make sure that it flows through. A little bit more. And there we go. Now it's gone through. We got our 6 leads here. These are for our jacks. Now we have to leave the power ones last because this has to be installed in the case before we solder to it. But we can do the other jacks right now. So let's use our helping hands again. Where'd I put you, helping hands? Hard to lose you, you're so big, but here we go. All right. So the board, let's go wherever. And a jack. It's going to go here. Oh. With these particular Lumberg jacks, this right here, this tab connects to the tip. They're right next to each other, so it's easy to remember. The other tab connects to the sleeve, which is the ground. So it's very important that your red goes here, your black goes here. You get it back, your circuit's going to make an backwards, your circuit's going to make an awful noise. Okay, and jacks is a, look at me, I'm almost did it backwards. Oops. Need to find a way to make this guy not as wonky, I think. One of these days I'll get around to that. Okay. So this is a great way for you to see. We want to go the other way because this is going to be the case. So we want to go through this side here. But you'll see where the solder, it can attach to just the pad, or it can attach to board's a little heavy for this guy. Or it'll attach or not touch the wire. Or if you stick the wire in too far, you'll actually burn the insulation. So we want to make sure metal's touching metal there. And the way I like to do it, so I start with the solder on the lug first, get it flowing, and I flow a lot. And I let go. And then I pushed it, I did exactly what I said might happen unintentionally. I pushed the wire in a little too far and it burnt the jacket. That doesn't matter that much, it just looks a little ugly. But it should be nice and clean and shiny, and the wire should be touching the metal. There shouldn't be like a little pucker around the wire. And you can test to make sure it's a solid joint, which I'm confident it is, even if it wasn't my best one I've ever done. Carefully go around and do the other side. Same idea. Getting the lug hot. But don't wait too long, because jacks are sensitive to heat too, because a lot of it's plastic. Okay, that's one side's done. If it'll let me, we'll rotate over and do the other side. Wire through. That's nice and solid and shiny. Again, I'm cleaning my tip. Anytime I set my soldering iron down, I clean it. And then if I'm doing a whole bunch of soldering at one time, I clean it every, I don't know, I try to do it every 5 or 6 joints, because it really helps to make it keeps your tool lasting longer for you, but also the more you go, you get that resin built up, then you get your temperature drops, your performance drops, heat transferability drops. Okay. After the debacle with the octopus, we are good to go. And really, we're at our last step, which is installing the enclosure, or installing the parts in the enclosure, soldering up the DC jack. Okay, so go ahead and tighten this up. Otherwise, when I set it down to install the DC jack, it will just push through and move things around. I want this to hold it tight. Now, me personally, I don't use the Teflon washer. I mean, it's there to protect the case from getting scratched, but I think they're ugly. But it's up to you. Your personal choice. I do use washers here because it helps to cover up the hole. If the hole's a little larger, I tend to drill my holes a little bit larger than needed because I like to be able to move it around, move the components around a little bit. And also it gives it a nice even place to put pressure. Also, I should point out, foot switches have 2 nuts. One's for adjusting the height. In this particular one, because it's board mounted and we want the pot to pass all the way through, I set it at maximum height, so it's not needed. Okay, so now that that's solid, I'm going to install these guys. Same deal, we got a washer and a nut. Once everything's assembled and tested, we'll go through and thoroughly tighten these down with my multi-tool. Also, there's a guy out there named Tony Peppers of Peppers Pedals out of New Zealand who makes these devices called rocket sockets. They're small fabricated hand nuts, or hand sockets, I guess you'd call them. I have my set, but they're not handy. I didn't bring them over. But they're really nice because you've got all the sizes that pedal builders would use. Very handy. They're durable. I like them. Again, they're in a box in another area, and I didn't think to bring them over for this demo. So we use my multi-tool. When you're installing this, make sure your wires don't get all tangled up. We don't want to accidentally break a wire, but also looks bad. And see, I think I'm a good teacher because I will show you everything you're not supposed to do, because I've done everything you're not supposed to do many times before getting things right. And even after getting things right, I still sometimes screw up on things. But okay, wires are out of the way. The jack wires are out of the way here. I just kind of fold them in here if needed. Now we've got our DC. Now these use external nuts to install them, so we can solder them first, but this uses an internal. Most of these do. And so you got to install it in the case first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Just tightening it up here. I was reviewing the first part of the video a little bit. I noticed you guys got a good shot of top of my head. Probably not what you wanted to see, but that's what we get with high quality professional video from Noise Therapy Effects. Okay, so that's tightened. You've got 2 leads. Now you'll notice a trend, just like other devices. Long is positive, short is negative. Always double check, because there are some situations where that's not the case. But most things you encounter, it will be the case as it is here. So I just go ahead and bend the leads a little bit and slide them in here. I like to go from the inside out just to doubly make sure that we don't have positive and negatives short. Because if you go in and in, you got to cut the leads for sure to make sure that they are not touching each other. Something like that. Clean the tip of your iron, people. Do this without my head getting in the way. Not too long. These are heat sensitive. I use these particular brand components because I find their durability and quality is really excellent, but they also take up less space. And sometimes I'm doing builds that are cramped, and I'm not as diligent as some other builders, I think, as far as being exacting with everything. I mean, I know some guys that do, when they design a circuit board, they do full 3D models, which is awesome, but I haven't figured out how to do that, and I get close enough. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so here we are, all wired up, good to go. Here's our LED. Go ahead and crank it up. Let me turn on my amp real quick. Soldering iron off, because I think we're done soldering. When you turn off your soldering iron, clean your tip, and then add a big glob of solder. The reason why we're doing this is it puts a coating, a big coating of solder over the tip to prevent the iron from oxidizing. And so your tip will last longer. Let's see, power supply. Just be a moment as I move all my cables and stuff over to the workbench. And hopefully I'm not embarrassed and this works right off the bat. One thing you can do, hook up your power, then check to see the LED lights. That's always a good sign. That means for one thing, you installed it properly. You didn't get the positive and negatives mixed up. But it's also a good sign that maybe everything else is going to work just right. So here's that's our output, our input, and where'd that power cable go? I always start with the lowest, of course. We don't know if we're going to get crazy feedback or whatnot. Grab a guitar here. We'll just pick my old, my baby here. I love this Esquire. One guitar I will never get rid of. It just plays great. I love the color. Mildly in tune. All right, power on. Hey, I hear old Gregg. We'll make an assessment. Do you love it? I sure hope so. I want to see your guys' build. I want to hear how it sounds and what you like. And any more comments? You know, this project was such a... I was overwhelmed with the positivity and how many people were interested. And there's a bunch of old Greggs out there. I think I'm going to start doing one of these maybe once a month. A kind of a fun, simple circuit that, you know, is kind of a fun caricature of something going on that's popular. I already have an idea for my next board that I will probably produce next week and get out there by the end of January. Because this is fun. I like to offer these inexpensively as possible, and hopefully you guys enjoy the hobby and building the pedals and making great tones. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Thank you very much.